Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the SEBB Go Live Preparedness webinar. My name is Matthew Toney. I'm a Strategic Plan Project Manager with the Washington State Healthcare Authority. We had about 250 people register for this, so we're still sort of waiting on some attendees to see if some more are going to trickle in. So probably we'll wait another 1 or 2 minutes to see if we can get up to that number, and we'll be right back with you. And Matthew, are you doing the chat? Hello, everyone. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not talking to a wall here, that I am talking to other people. So if you could use the chat function and let me know and verify that you can hear what I'm saying, that would be hugely helpful. All righty, everybody, thank you so much for typing into the chat that you can hear me. I appreciate that. Once again, thank you so much for attending the SEBB Go Live Preparedness webinar. My name is Matthew Toney. I'm a Strategic Plan Project Manager. Some of you may know me through working with John Bowden, the manager of the SEBB section, on stakeholdering and outreach efforts. I'll be your facilitator and timekeeper for this webinar, and I'm going to be ensuring that your questions get answered by our two technical experts on the phone call, John Bowden for SEBB Program Leadership and Katrina Pitch for SEBB My Account technical questions. Just some general housekeeping. As I was saying, just some general housekeeping. All attendees in the webinar are muted, so please type any questions within the chat box. I'll be monitoring the chat box for any questions, and we'll be live answering those questions as they're coming in. This webinar will be recorded, so if there are any colleagues of yours who weren't able to attend today, then make sure to include them on this recorded webinar. So all attendees of this webinar will receive the recorded link. And we've also been recording in the HCA SEBB IT support inbox anyone who has raised their hand and said that they're interested in receiving the recorded webinar as well. This webinar is focused on the benefits administrators, IT support, pretty much any benefits level, high district level administrators. That's what this webinar is focused on. And when you leave this webinar, you'll know the options for inputting eligible employees in the SEBB My Account. And you also know your responsibilities leading up to SEBB Go Live. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. In this room, that's everybody in here. John Bowden, manager of the SEBB section, Katrina Pitch, business analyst of SEBB My Account, and myself, your facilitator. And we also have some support as well in the room. So any questions that you might have, hopefully we can get answered. Next slide, please. Today's agenda, we're going to go over a sort of SEBB Go Live timeline. So from where we're at now, leading up to Go Live and open enrollment, we're going to be going over those milestones and do-outs and responsibilities that you have as a SEBB organization. We're going to talk through a couple key items about authorized administrators in SEBB My Account, eligibility determinations, testing eligibility files, adding eligible employees into SEBB My Account. We're also going to be doing sort of a rehash of what we did on 7/19 with the eligibility file specifications and the dependent file specifications. And then we're also going to be discussing some questions that you raised in our survey and also through HCA SEBB IT support. So we're going to try to get those questions answered for you. And then lastly, WSIPC personnel is on the call, and they're going to be providing some input onto their support role for their sub-organizations. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand over the phone call to John Bowden, the manager of the subsection, and he'll be walking through the timeline.
Good afternoon, this is John. Thanks for joining us. This timeline is one that we showed at the last webinar. Just want to go through it very quickly to show where we're at now, the progress that we've been making. We have gone a lot further in terms of getting the authorized administrators for each of the sub-organizations. There are only a few that we do not have at this point. We'll contact them directly, but a big thank you to everybody that has gotten your authorization in. We'll be talking more about the eligibility file preparation and testing and how to determine employee eligibility. In the blue, the third kind of bar down, the two-day trainings are currently taking place. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail about that today, but we hope you are attending and learning from that. Let us know through FAQs if you have questions, ideas about those trainings. We have folks here that are conducting those, and they'd be happy to hear any feedback you might have. Also appreciate those completing the surveys on the trainings. It's very helpful. On the sub-eligibility file testing, we'll talk about that very briefly today, make sure that you are ready and that we're ready and that things are all as they should be. We also want to talk about the uploading of the eligibility files. And then at the end, you see two additional blue bars there. The first one showing when we go live with our benefit fairs and the time period for open enrollment. And as you can see, we're only about 5.5 weeks out from the start of open enrollment.
John, we do have some people writing into the chat. If you could move or speak louder, closer to the mic.
Okay, I'll try yelling because all of the good chairs are already taken. All right, let's go to the next one. I want to start out with a little bit on the authorized administrators for SEBB My Account. There's two primary reasons that we need to know who the authorized administrators are. They play a very key role in designating others that can perform duties within SEBB My Account. So we need to have all those authorizations by September 3rd so that the appropriate people can enter information, assist employees, things of that nature when SEBB My Account goes live. We are aiming right now at 7 a.m. on the 3rd. Second primary responsibility is to make sure an eligibility file is uploaded. We would like to have that done within the first week from September 3rd through the 10th. This guarantees that employees will be able to make supplemental coverage elections. Go to the next one. Also wanted to see how things are going with eligibility determinations. And we'd like you to have a file of the eligibility of the eligible employees prior to September 3rd, if at all possible, because we want to make sure that we have those employees in the system when we are up and going. So I know many of you have already started this process, and that's wonderful. In some, I was at or attended the online training that WSIPC had, so I see for the WSIPC districts out there that WSIPC is providing assistance in your determination about employee eligibility. For all of you, you need to look at the threshold of 630 hours or more in a school year, anticipated or actually worked, and that's the threshold. So last time we had a webinar, I shared with you one benefit administrator said that his plan and what he's already done is to look at employees and any that are working at least 50% time. He's automatically deciding that they are eligible. Any below about 25% time, not eligible. And so this focus is really on making determinations for employees that fall in between that category. So the eligibility files that you send in have two real uses. Pre-populating SEBB My Account, so when employees go in, they find themselves in there and they can make their benefit selection. We're also using the eligibility files, if we receive them in time, to help us in sending enrollment guide information to the employees. The information that we have right now comes from the employee contact information that we got quite some time back. As we've talked about before, we know there are some errors in there. There are some employees that are no longer with your district, and we know that there are many more that have joined and some that are still there but are not going to be eligible that are receiving information we're currently mailing. So we'd like to have as clean a list or file of eligible employees as we possibly can to get information to them. Now I'm going to stop here for just a moment and tell you that I was making presentations this morning, a series of 20-minute presentations, and the way things worked out, I ended up getting about 6 minutes in each of them. So my mouth has not slowed down from this morning. If I'm going too fast, let me know. But are there any
We do have a couple questions, John. One of them pertaining to the authorized administrators. Are the authorized administrators the only one that can upload the eligibility file, or can they designate that?
They can designate that, yeah. Their primary responsibility is going to be to make sure it does get uploaded, but others can do it.
Yeah, those with the benefits administrators admin role or read-write access can upload an eligibility file.
We have a question pertaining to some documents from the training. There was an eligibility worksheet that was talked about being given to all employees and helping to make their determinations. There's a question as to when that will be made available to employers.
The worksheets are going to be available. This is Amanda. The worksheets will be available coming soon. We don't have an exact date for when the worksheets will be going into place for notification, but there will be information coming out soon about the notifications for first annual open enrollment.
A question for you, Katrina, is about the eligibility spreadsheet, or I would say the eligibility file specs. Is it different from the NAVIA eligibility spreadsheet?
Yes, definitely. The eligibility file specifications are posted on our benefit administrator resource page at HDA. We'll be going through the links on that. So we do have the specifications out, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have on that. We're going to be reviewing kind of some of those locations here shortly, not going too far into depth. So if you have additional questions on those, feel free to reach out.
And this is John. For questions about NAVIA, the standard MetLife, we will be able to answer some today. In other cases, we'll wait and make sure that the information gets sent to you when we provide the summary and recap and post today's webinar.
There's a question about the eligibility worksheet. Does the SEBB eligibility worksheet need to be completed for their first enrollment, or is that for going forward after the initial eligibility file?
The worksheets will be going forward after the first annual open enrollment. Worksheets will not be for first annual open enrollment.
Katrina, there's a question about when will we receive our login information as being an authorized administrator in SEBB My Account?
So the authorized administrators were designated by superintendents in your district. Those forms have been received by the majority of school districts. So we have those folks that are eligible. Basically, that have been authorized. So your email address tied to a Secure Access Washington account is what will get you into the system. And so we have that information available. They're going through that process in our 2-day in-person training that the outreach and training team is going through. We also have video training guides on how to log in with that, and then additionally user guides that have been put out to be able to walk through that process. But it is not something that we would be sending out. It is tied to your district email address that was included on the form that your superintendent sent in.
And they will be able to do that when?
September 3rd.
There's a question about whether or not there's a template letter to notify employees of their eligibility.
We are waiting on the official determination for notification for first annual open enrollment. We should be having a determination here very shortly.
There's a question around whether or not that there's a implementation guide of sorts that has all due dates associated with due outs for the sub-organizations, that it's all in one place. I would say that probably the benefit administrator website is the best place to go to for due outs for the sub-organizations to complete leading up to go live.
A lot of folks nodding their head yes for those who can't hear the nods.
And we do actually have the link to the benefit administrator site within this presentation later on when we get to it. I would say from that, we've caught up with the questions. So John, do you want to go ahead and go to the next slide?
Actually, John, do you want to make reference to the other materials that have been made available that are not coming from the Healthcare Authority?
That'd probably be a good place to put it. There is some information going out from other sources about SEBB. There are folks trying to be helpful in getting information out, but please be cautious. One thing to note is that information is not always accurate, and so we don't want you misleading employees, getting the wrong ideas about certain things. So accuracy is a big, important piece to it. And we will be getting an enrollment guide out to all employees toward the end of September. I mentioned that earlier about the eligibility file. It'll be a very large, very complete, a lot of information in. That'll be showing up in their mailboxes. We are hoping to get all of the materials that'll be in the enrollment guide posted on our website earlier than that. So I would caution folks on not relying too much on information that you might receive from other sources. I'm not saying it's wrong, but we have seen some and there are mistakes in there. And so we just want you to know that there is official SEBB program materials coming your way. And don't get panicky about you haven't seen certain things at this point. Send us questions through FAQs. Some of them we can answer right now. Others, like I said, when we finalize some things, we'll have it posted. So, and I'll talk about a few of these items at another point in here, because we had some questions that came in through the Survey Monkey before we started, and we've included some information in upcoming slides.
Next slide. Okay. This is Katrina. I'm going to talk a little bit here about SEBB My Account and kicking off with testing your eligibility files. We do have the ability now to receive your test eligibility files in preparation for our go live through FAQs. Hopefully you guys have all set up a FAQs account with Outreach and Training. If you have not, the address here, the web address is here for easy access, and it's a pretty quick, easy process to sign up for. This is our chosen communication method for sending secure data back and forth. So you can submit your test eligibility files before September 3rd. So we can make sure to run that through our system, that the format is good, and we can respond back to you after we've had an opportunity to test it with any errors or additional feedback about that file. We have received a good number of files already. Thank you folks for sending those in. Hopefully that has been helpful. please let us know if you have any questions about that process. We do have 2 opportunities at this point to go ahead and add eligible employees into SEBB My Account. The first is through manual entry, logging into SEBB My Account as a benefits administrator and manually entering in all of the information on an eligible employee. That would be a one-by-one method. Additionally, we have the opportunity to do a bulk upload through the eligibility file. You'll hear us keep referencing that. And that is opportunity for you to add eligible employees. We only want the eligible folks. You would not send people that are not SEBB eligible. They're either going to be SEBB eligible or locally eligible. Additionally, we included functionality to be able to send dependents. We'll discuss that here shortly. Additionally, at the bottom here, we have the web address for the Benefits Administrator website. There are a lot of tools and resources there for benefits administrators as you're preparing for Go Live. We have all of our file specifications there, as we're going to touch briefly on in the next couple of slides, as well as good contact information for outreach and training. If you have additional questions, frequently asked questions, things of that nature.
Before we move on, we do have some questions, Katrina. Starting off, do we put all employees' info in these test files? Sure, we'd like to know.
So the test files have, or the eligibility files have required information. So in order for a record to be considered good or valid, we have to receive a certain portion of required fields. And we have those fields designated in our specifications. So I'm happy to direct you to the, if you follow the link shown there at the bottom of the screen to the SEBB Benefits Administrator website, you will find the specifications there and can peruse through those to see what exactly the required fields are.
There is a question pertaining to WSIPC's role in sending the test files on behalf of the SEBB organizations. So Terry and Sean, if you're on the phone, would you like to just answer that question pertaining to your role in testing with HCA?
Yes, so we have worked with HCA to test the format and compatibility aspect of the file upload. We certainly invite our districts to go ahead and submit their own files if they want to practice during this time frame. You get familiar with the workflow and the upload into my SEBB account. I guess maybe to answer directly, the SMS districts are required to, all districts are required to upload the files into SEBB My Account. So the benefit administrators would log into SEBB My Account and locate their generated file and upload it into the portal.
We also have a question about enrollment guides and when the enrollment guides will be mailed out to the SEBB organizations.
So when you ask when they'll be mailed to the SEBB organizations, let me back up a moment and say we'll mail directly to employees toward the later half, about week 3 of September. We can send directly to the SEBB organizations, perhaps a little bit earlier than that, because we'll be sending bulk. We'll send cases of the enrollment guides. We're planning on sending about 25% of your employee population to you in case employees lose what they have, the one that was sent to them, or especially in case you have a new employee or one for some reason didn't receive at their home. So those will be showing up maybe a little bit earlier than what the employees will see, but around the 3rd week of September is when you should be expecting it. We really don't want to get them there too early because we're also sending paper form enrollment packets, and we want to push people toward SEBB My Account use as opposed to filling out the paper forms. So we don't want to get them there too early and have anybody think that they need to hand out paper forms. So about the 3rd week of September.
Okay, one of of the questions that we had on the test, back to the eligibility files, somebody asked if it was supposed to be mock data or live data. We had a different process earlier on for receiving mock data, and at this point, if you utilize the FAQs communication channel, you can send live data. We will run it through SEBB My Account. However, you will still need to submit your official data on your own on September 3rd. This is just for testing purposes only. So we will go ahead and run the files through, respond back with error messages. This is an opportunity for you to exercise the functionality in your system to be able to export the eligibility file and upload it, or well, send it through our email system versus being able to upload it yourself, as that will be available on September 3rd.
Katrina, is the dependent file, is that mandatory?
No, the dependent file is not mandatory. It was received as an enhancement request for districts that happen to have that information available on dependents for their subscribers and wanted to go ahead and provide that service to their subscribers by sending that information in ahead of time. Even if we do receive the dependent file, subscribers will still have to go in and elect to provide benefits to those dependents that were received. So I have heard from a good portion of districts that that's not information that they retained, but it was something that we were able to just work in, so, but absolutely not required, no.
John, a couple of follow-on questions about the enrollment guide. There's a question as to when the electronic version of the enrollment guide will be posted on the SEBB website. And then also a question on the enrollment guide as to whether or not it'll be mailed to employees or just employers.
I'll start with the second one first. The enrollment guide will be mailed to all of the current employees where we have a residential or mailing address to send to. So the employees will be getting it directly at their homes or mailing addresses. We will also send additional ones directly to the employers. So they'll be going both places. And then in terms of timing on the enrollment guide, the hard copy ones toward the end of September, we may see about getting the PDF version posted on our website earlier than that. So hopefully, I know there's a real interest push because everywhere I go, people are wanting to know more about what plans are available, where are they available, and what are the rates. And additional questions around how to sign up for benefits and what the eligibility would be, things of that nature. All of it contained within the enrollment guide. So we definitely know people are out there wanting it, eager to get it. We'll get it up as quick as we can. We're only about, 8-9 days left in this month. So I'd say it could be around as little as 2 weeks that we would get it up. It might take a little bit longer than that, but I'll say 2 to 3 weeks.
We do have a question for WSIPC again, asking for clarification on WSIPC providing test files to HCA. The question is as follows. Are districts uploading their actual files between the 3rd and the 10th and WSIPC testing those files beforehand? I think on our side, Katrina, if you want to take on the actual files between the 3rd and the 10th.
Sean, I think you wanted to respond to part of that.
Pardon me?
Okay. No. Well, I thought maybe I had heard you starting to respond. So a couple of things. WSIPC has tested that the format, they've tested the export process and things along those lines. However, the districts can go in, mark those that are sub-eligible, and run through the process of creating that file, export it, and test it with us here at HCA prior to September 3rd. But it is definitely on the district to be able to take the action of exporting that file and sending it to us September 3rd through the 10th to get their folks loaded into SEBB My Account. WSIPC isn't going to take that action for them. They provided the ability for that export to be created from their system, and I know that they have started training on how to make that possible, and I think they'll be touching on that and at the tail end of our presentation to just answer some questions in that arena.
Well, along those lines, we do have SEBB organizations that are not WSIPC users, so we'd like to make sure we get through all of the general information that applies to everybody, and then we have special time at the end that WSIPC will do a presentation. So don't want to cut anybody off, but want to make sure that this is of value to all SEBB organizations.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the next slide and talk briefly about the SEBB My Account eligibility file specifications. The previous slide showed the location of those specifications on our website. Again, this is for bulk addition of eligible employees. You can start on September 3rd, and as you have additional employees to add, please feel free to send us a new file with the delta of those employees. So if you had 1,000 employees that you sent the first time and you hired 100 more that are SEBB eligible, the second file that we would expect to receive are the 100 additional employees. If you send somebody a second time to this eligibility file, it will error out because the system will assume that you're trying to add another person with the same Social Security number. So it is an upload process. You will select a file from your system and upload into SEBB My Account. We have data elements that can be reviewed on the file specifications as well as error messages that are posted on that site. The final specifications were sent out originally on July 17th, so hopefully you've received those. If you have not, please check out the website and let us know if you have additional questions. I have had a couple of questions that have come through in regards to some of the elements, so I'll address a couple of those now, and if we don't get to all of your questions, rest assured we will respond back individually. One of the questions was, will logging into SEBB My Account as a benefits administrator, does it require a secondary SAW account if you already have one for your personal use? And the answer is yes. The SAW account that you use, Secure Access Washington, to log into SEBB My Account as a benefits administrator must include your district email address as part of that SAW account. That is how we validate that you are who you say you are when you come from SAW. So you will use that for your benefits administrator access, and then you are free to use your existing SAW account as for your individual subscriber access when you're utilizing SEBB My Account for your own personal benefits. A couple more questions. One of them pertains to the represented box. The question about, is the employee represented, yes or no? If the employee is part of a collective bargaining unit, then the answer is yes. And we would expect to receive the date in which they joined that collective bargaining unit. So that is a request of information that was made by the legislature for us to gather. So please let us know if you have additional questions on that. And the last piece was on the eligibility date. What should be the first date? The question was, shouldn't it just be January 1st of 2020? And that is when coverage starts. That's not necessarily when an employee becomes eligible. The eligibility date would fall within the 2019-2020 school year. At this point, I would recommend having your eligibility date should be October 1st, 2019 or earlier. Otherwise, the system will not allow the person to come in and register for benefits. If your eligibility date is October 5th, has been reported as October 5th, they will not be able to make their benefit elections immediately in SEBB My Account. So October 1st, 2019 or earlier in the 2019-2020 school year. So it would be expected to be a date between September and October 1st. Okay. The secondary upload is for dependent file, or the dependent demographic information. So again, opportunity to add in a bulk fashion employees' dependents, if you happen to have that information. The specifications, again, are posted on our website, and we sent those out originally on July 17th. The data elements that we collect for dependents is considerably less than it is for employees. So feel free to take a look at that, and if that's something that you would like to tackle and send, I'm sure your employees would appreciate it. Otherwise, they can feel free to enter their dependents when they gain access to the system on October 1st. We've had some of the questions around, okay, we understand how to add employees into SEBB My Account, but how do we update employees? At this point in time, the easiest way to go in and update employees is through the Manage Employee, it's under Manage Subscribers and then the Employment tab, which is highlighted here in red on the left. So the previous information that was sent in through the eligibility file or through manual entry can be found here after a search of an employee. Excuse me, this is where you can terminate eligibility of an employee, you can transfer them, or review information that has been previously sent to ensure that it's correct or potentially update as necessary.
I just wanted to take a second and say that there is a lot of feedback pertaining to the represented box, and I think that for this webinar, I think that we definitely have received feedback that we need to take that back and refine our response to that and make sure that we get out some advice pertaining to the represented box out to the attendees of this. So I think
that question is on the subscriber side. Okay, I didn't hear you say that, but that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of feedback pertaining to represented and whether it is optional or mandatory. So that's something that obviously we need to take back and send out some clarification to the attendees of this webinar.
Yeah. Okay. It is a mandatory response, either a yes or a no in the eligibility file. Jerry, did you want to?
So the only thing I was going to add there is that it is visible to the benefits administrators. It is not there for the subscriber. So I know that we had some conversations with some representatives of some of the school districts this morning, and it was brought up that there is a subscriber. It's not in the subscriber screen. It's actually in the benefits administrator screen.
Yeah, so they won't see what was reported necessarily for represented status.
Right. And if we're all totally mistaken, we will remove it before they ever have access.
Okay. And then we can respond back on some of the additional questions that were presented. Another of the questions has been reports. What kinds of reports are going to be available in SEBB My Account? So we have started off, and I say started off because I understand we've been receiving feedback already about some additional reports that would be helpful. But our starting point here is eligibility status, dependent verification status, benefit election changes, represented employees, subscribers without system logins, and default benefits election. So these reports have different parameters that you can set when you run them. If you have additional questions on those, let us know. These will also be, information on these is contained within the user guide that Outreach and Training has put together. There have been several questions regarding billing and reconciliation file. This is also available within SEBB My Account, available for download on a monthly basis. We will also have a separate accounting manual available. And your first billing file will be December 16th. And the first payment, Amanda, is February 5th. Is that correct? February 5th. Okay. So we will have that available to you. The billing file will be available, the 6 most recent files. So past that, as we move forward, you would contact Outreach and Training to receive copies of older files more than 6 months back. Additionally, the billing file specifications are on that previous link. For the SEBB Benefits Administrator website at HCA. Dependent verification. John, do you want to talk to this?
Sure. So we did get some questions about dependent verification. One of them had to do with how long does the process take? And the process itself, for your end of it, as a benefit administrator, it's pretty quick. You can open up SEBB My Account, look at the employee in question. If he or she is standing in front of you with the necessary documents for one or all of their dependents, you can look at it, say, here's the type of document I saw, that it was good in terms of verifying that the dependent is indeed eligible, and enter the date on which you saw it. So it's basically 3 quick things. If the document is something that you're unsure of, you don't necessarily want to make that determination because you're uncertain about it, you can do an upload of it, the same as employees can upload images using SEBB My Account. And then the next question is, what is Iron Mountain's role? So for the images that are uploaded either by the employee using, say, their smartphone or a 3-in-1 or whatever, Iron Mountain will look at those images and they will make the determinations as to whether the document indeed verifies that the dependent is eligible for coverage. So we're not asking anyone to hang on to the documents once you've looked at them. We're not going to hang on to them any longer than we need for our purposes. But once you either have entered the document and the dependent as being eligible, or Iron Mountain is, it's instantaneous. As soon as those 3 things are filled in, the process is complete. Now, I will say we do have some auditing that the legislature wants us to do to make sure, so it's not complete until we get through the auditing process, but it's practically instantaneous for the great majority of employees. We also had some questions about when will information about really the medical plans be available. I know there's a lot of interest. I said this a moment ago, that I'm getting lots of questions about geographic availability and how much the cost would be. So where, when, how are the rate sheets going to be available? We'll get those posted as quickly as we can on the HCA website. I was asked earlier about the enrollment guide. The enrollment guide will contain all of those, but we'll have the PDF version of the enrollment guide on our website a little bit earlier. And then to try to be a little more helpful than to tell you just be patient and wait, I did put in here some information from the July 18th School Employee Benefit Board meeting, the briefing book that the board members were provided. That is on the HCA website. So where you see it underlined July 18th, 2019 SEBB Board Meeting Briefing Book, that's the URL, and it takes you to a very big briefing book. So it's a PDF. Look for PDF pages 95 through 112 for maps of what medical plans are available in what counties. And there's even a very complex table in there because we have some additional school districts that have medical plans available to them besides those for the county in which they live. So quite a few pages in there. On benefit design information, we have some high-level information about benefit design in that same briefing book. So you can click on the URL or the link to take you to the July 18th briefing book. Pages 115 through 122 have benefit design information. Like I said, it is high level, so we'll have more complete information coming out later, but right now, high level. And then last one thing that has got a lot of questions being asked about is the board did finalize the rates, and in the same briefing book on pages 129 to 132, you can find some tables that have the medical plans in there and what the rates are for all tier levels. For individual employees, it ranges from $13 a month to $116. And then if you go all the way to the right, the last column is for full family, employees, spouses, or state registered domestic partners and children. You'll see that that column is 3 times as much as the individual subscribers. So those rates are all out there. People, if you're doing any looking, just need to make sure you match up the geographic availability with the rate table.
So at this point in time, we're going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to WSIPC.
All right, can you hear me, Katrina? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for letting us share some updates with the cooperative members. We have been working busily on getting pieces in place for the SEBB eligibility selection and upload. So we want to kind of go through those activities at a high level here. If we could go to the next slide. In addition to this project, WSIPC is also endeavoring down the process of creating file imports and exports, reporting options for the various payroll deductions, and reporting to other carriers like Navia, MetLife, and the Standard. So those are other projects that are in place, but of course the immediate focus is around the eligibility selection and upload. Next slide, please. So at a high level, we have developed into the software a dedicated tab record, if you will, for eligibility determination selection, and it has the extra required fields that are needed. For example, the represented checkbox and the represented date. They're available within that tab, both in SMS and cumulative, and something that you can then select and make determination for each of those employees. There's options to do them in mass. And then once you have those employees selected, then you can generate a file out of your system and then log into SEBB My Account and upload that file. That's a very high level overview of what features are available in the Skyward product. I'm going to kind of talk about how you can get more detail here in just a second, but if we go to the next slide, again, just to reiterate what we talked about earlier and what Katrina articulated well, WSIPC went through and tested the files and with the upload. But there's certainly, we encourage you if you want to participate in practicing. I believe I heard Katrina talk about being able to do that on the 3rd. Certainly want to take advantage of those opportunities to practice the upload and get familiar with the workflow. So yeah, the format's been tested, it's compatible. We're vetted that completely out with HCA, but we certainly want you to feel like you can maneuver through these processes with confidence. So we certainly encourage that extra practice. All right, next slide. So as far as how you can get more details on this process, WSIPC has published a WSIPC guide to SEBB reporting. It's available from our Skyward Online library, as well as you can request it from your ESD or service center. It has lots of details on how to navigate and utilize the tools that are dedicated to the SEBB eligibility selection and the file generation. Next slide. WSIPC has been providing, in conjunction with the service centers, has been providing demonstrations of this functionality. We have done 3 demonstrations to date, and we have 2 more scheduled. So there's one that's we're going to do tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and one that is scheduled for Monday at 2 p.m. So if you haven't had an opportunity to attend or want to hear it again, you're welcome to do so. Those bullets are linked in the slide deck. You can also inquire with your service center. They can also help you get registered for those sessions, and we certainly encourage you to do that. If you're unable to attend, or if you know a colleague that was unable to attend, we'll be providing a recording of one of those sessions and make that available to you. More will come to you about that, how to access that from your service center. All right, and so after you have the documentation, you'll have an opportunity to see it demonstrated and ask questions, but obviously you'll want some support going forward if you have questions on a piece of functionality or maybe how to work it through a different scenario. Your service centers are there for you, as they always are, to help you navigate through this process, and you certainly just can engage them through your normal support protocols. And WSIPC is certainly there to support the service centers and you through this process. All right, next slide. So again, at the high level, we're going to encourage you to attend one of those sessions, get a hold of that guide, and talk to your service centers. But certainly can open it up now for any questions regarding that process.
Sean, this is John. I just want to put in a quick plug for your team. I attended one of the trainings. I thought you guys did an excellent job. So I appreciate the work you've been doing to help districts be ready.
Great, thank you.
So if you want to go to the next slide. So in terms of next steps, we have been recording this webinar, so we will send out this recording and the presentation to all attendees and to anyone who has raised their hand and offered that they would like to receive the webinar. And in terms of SEBB organization responsibilities, August 16th through the 30th, we would like all SEBB organizations, including WSIPC SEBB organizations, to test individually with HCA. So go ahead and please send those test eligibility files through Fuse, and you'll see the HTML there. And by August 30th, we're hoping that you've been working to make your eligibility determinations. That will make compiling this eligibility file much easier. So we're hoping that you're working towards that. And then, of course, the 9/3 to 9/10 timeline. We would love for everyone to upload their eligibility file or manually enter their employees in the SEBB My Account during that time frame, so that employees will have the ability to use Navia and MetLife's online enrollment platform for selecting their supplemental benefits. So now at this point in time, we do have a couple minutes left over and a lot more questions than we do time. But just know that these questions are being recorded along with this webinar. So we will be reaching out after this webinar. If we didn't make it to your question, fear not. We will be turning these into FAQs and reaching out to get these questions answered. So with that, I guess probably the best place to start is at the very bottom. Sean, you do have a question. Can WSIPC explain how they'll assist districts with MetLife and other vendor files for supplementals?
Yes, so we'll help provide a file exchange, if you will, so a process where you can generate the required data into a file and be able to upload it into whatever interface is available by that vendor. So we're dialoguing with those vendors like MetLife and Navia, and so some of that design is still coming, but that's the overall objective, is to be able to give you some tools to be able to pull that data out of your system and efficiently, and then upload it into the required exchange, and vice versa, pull data out of their system if it's we're working with HCA to pull in payroll import data that you can apply to your deductions on your payroll runs. And so that's something we're also working on. So the design's still something that we're working through, and we can certainly provide more information at a later date.
Thank you. One of the questions was, what will happen if you're not able to upload all of your employees by September 10th? It's a great question. So, John, do you want to talk about that? Sure.
So if you have like the majority or a large number of your employees in your eligibility file, please submit those, and then you can add additional employees either one at a time manually, or you can do an additional upload. We just want to get as many as we possibly can within that first week, so that A, they can be sent the enrollment guide, that we have that information, and B, so that they can make the supplemental benefit selections. We can add more as we go along, and if possible, we'll make additional mailing out of enrollment forms or enrollment guides, and also try as best we can to make sure they have opportunities for supplemental selection. So yeah, you can go ahead and add more. Don't think that you're limited by that September 10th, and after that, it's not worth doing. Please continue. Jerry, you were.
So the impact potentially of adding them after the 10th is that come October 1, they may not be able to actually access either the Navia or the MetLife. It might be delayed by several days. Yep. So the timeline kind of depends on when you get it in. But to ensure that when they go into SEBB My Account, if they go in October 1, to ensure that they actually have access to the supplementals, that is why we need those files in by the 10th.
And one of the reasons that we had a slide and some discussion on adding more employees is that we know that you might not have all of your employees set by September 10th. Many school districts are still adding employees once they know how many students they're going to have and where the needs are and what those needs may be. So we know many of you will be adding employees throughout September. And some of you even perhaps into early October. So please do add the employees as they come in, and for all the reasons already stated.
One of the questions was, can a district do an upload file for employees hired after October 1st? And the answer is yes. There is no restriction on the amount of files that you can add or use to upload. So at any point in time, if you want to add one or more records by the eligibility file, please feel free. It's an ongoing process. It's going to be really helpful for getting your initial base population in, and then after that, feel free to either manually enter or use the file upload process.
There's also a question about uploading a file. Does that update employee records or overwrite them when you're uploading an eligibility file?
It will not overwrite employees that are already in the system. So if you wanted to update 10 employees with new addresses, you would actually need to log into SEBB My Account. The purpose of the eligibility file at this point in time is to add new records only, and it does not update existing records.
And note, if they already exist in the system and you submit them again, you'll get an error.
Exactly.
If an employee has a birth of a baby or adoption between November 15th and December 31st, how will they enroll their newborn child into SEBB benefits?
So within SEBB My Account, we do have special open enrollment events available. So they would go in and create a special open enrollment event for the birth or adoption of the child.
Is there a way to not include inactive employees in the eligibility report that was shown yesterday? So I guess
the question for
training.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. There's an option when you're selecting the report, the export report, to do the mass selection. You can say just include the active employees. Yeah.
This is a great question. What is the ONT team?
So outreach and training are your resource when you have questions about anything and everything. And if we cannot answer it, we do spend the time and research and find out who is the subject matter expert and get you the answer. So that's why you keep hearing everybody say use FAQs. FAQs is your link to outreach and training. We have a team of people who are learning right along with you because they're going to answer your questions. So send your questions to us. We will work with you. We will be the ones going forward that are sending you the Gov delivery. So as some of these processes that we keep saying we'll have a process for you in the future, you will hear about them through the Gov delivery. When we post things on the website, you'll get updates that there's information out there for you.
Who creates the, it says SOS, but I think it's SOE event and SEBB My Account, the VA or the employee?
The employee can log in and create the special open enrollment event. They need to upload proof of the event, and if they're adding a dependent, they also need to include dependent verification.
At this juncture, we are pretty much out of time, so if I could ask any respondents who have not had their question answered, or if you haven't asked a question that you would like to have answered, please go ahead and type it in the chat now, so that when I take a snapshot of this chat and I take it back, your question is represented, because we are now logging off. And on behalf of HCA, I would like to thank everybody for their participation, and we will be mulling over these questions, getting answers back out to you as soon as we can. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
And thank you, WSIPC, for your
And thank you, WSIPC, for your participation.
Thanks for having us.